Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Happy to have you here today for Comics News today on the 16th of November. Oh boy, time is flying for damn sure. We're almost out of this year, which probably means absolutely nothing, but the end of this year is going to be pretty exciting. I have a feeling. But nevertheless, we're going to be talking about comic books today. We're going to try our best to stay on track. Absolutely. You hear that, Eric? We're staying
I
on
hear it.
track. All right.
Train track,
On the train track. But while I go over here and hit the that like button and share as I need to do, why don't Thundero tell us a little bit about what he's been reading lately?
Uh, really, all I've been doing is focusing on the election. But I've been reading when I'm not focused on the madness that has become the American electoral system. Um, Mostly just like old books. Like I've been reading The Lord of the Rings every now and
Cool.
again. I went to an antique shop the other day with my wife, and they had a whole bunch of old books in there. But unfortunately, they weren't for sale. They were just for decoration. But they
Oh,
had like really old leather-bound books. But I just like old books. I've really started to get back into how much I like old books. Like I don't know. Is there something about a book?
yeah.
I can't read something digitally and get anywhere near the same enjoyment out of it
Mhm.
as I can a book. It's just something about having it in your hand and flipping the page and the smell of it and the just everything. You can almost taste it right through your smell, through the smell of the book. Um, there's just something about it. It's one of the reasons why, speaking of, like you said, comic books, it still shocks me that these companies have flubbed so much that they can't get people to buy these things when everything else is, seems to be doing well.
You know,
Um,
that's an interesting point you make there because I have to say, back when quite a while back when they started really pushing digital comic books, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool idea. But it isn't. It's just not. We the tactile aspect of comics, books, stuff like that. It's far more important than any of us realized.
yes.
And I kind of wonder. Most people probably have the same feeling. What about you, Eric? When digital came out, did you think, "Oh, that's a cool idea"? Or
Oh, I thought it was a cool idea, and actually, to an extent, I still think it's a cool idea for portability, to take
oh,
on the go
sure,
with you, something like that. But as collecting wise, I mean, you can't beat the smell and the feel of a comic book in your hand.
that's true. That's true. What are you reading right now?
Actually, mostly crowdfunded stuff. I've got Hybrids, The Son of Gods by Luke Stone, volumes 1 through 5. I got Matt Kratz's Kyrie and Zach Bradley's World of Gulma. I gotta get caught up on.
Yeah, well, no, I've read Galma, and I read R.T. Bear's Chrono Mechanics, which is a pretty good book actually. But I've actually kind of been like Thundero. I've been reading a lot of old stuff. I've been read. I should say listening because I'm always working. But I've been listening to the Silmarillion again.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's a different experience to listen to it. They got a great voice actor. I don't know who it is, but it's a different experience listening to it than reading it. I'm not sure which is better, but they're different.
Listening, it's very easy to do while you're doing other stuff. I went through all the Bombs Oz books by listening to them a couple times.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's like I don't know how many hours those are, but this one's like an 8-hour audiobook.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty long. Pretty long. But anyway, before we jump into the news today, hello, chat. Nice to see you. We've got Brian over here. We've got Roger as well. Thank you guys for joining us. Please do hit that share button. But before we jump into anything, do you guys have any comic book news or comic book topics you'd like to talk about before we jump into my preparation?
I have been checked out all day, so I have no idea if anything's happening.
Yeah, I haven't looked at anything at all today.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll have, and I've been saying this a lot recently, and it's a sad thing, but boy, I had to work real hard today to find anything that was actually comic book news, dude.
Ooh,
I mean, my goodness, all the comic book channels and news channels, because all we're doing is just reading other people's headlines and giving our opinion, right? We're not actually
right.
journalists here. But I went to all of them, and everybody is talking about everything that has nothing to do with comic books. I mean, it's crazy,
Of
right?
course.
Mandalorian is there's got to be 3 dozen articles on it. which is fine. But you're a comic book channel. I mean, shouldn't you be talking about comic books? Anyway, it was difficult, man. But I did find some actual comic book news to dig through. So rock on. Hey, Eric, what's up, man? Eric Boyd. So I'm going to go over here and share this so these guys can see what I'm doing, and let's get into it. Now, I kind of want to change the format just a touch here on the show, and start out every show by talking about, you know, comics of the past, either in whole or in, like last week we talked about Buck Rogers. Excuse me. So I wanted to do that again. And yesterday we were talking a little bit about, and I was kind of promoting the fact that, back in the 30s, 40s, and especially into the 50s, which, of course, we know all about the Comic Code Authority and that crazy doctor who had a vengeance against comic books and, all the kind of, crazy things that happened. But I talked about how great those old horror books were. So I figured, let's talk about old horror books from the 50s. How's that sound?
Cool.
So I found a listing here of some favorite panels that this website. What is this called here? This is called Flashback. So they look at stuff of the past, I guess. I don't know anything about this website, but thank you very much for your information. And they're looking at their favorite panels from the age of horror, particularly in the 50s. And I just kind of want to take a look at these things because, if you go back and read some of them, which I have, and of course, when I was younger, we also had some other horror books like what was it called? Maybe Eric knows better. Was it called Creep Show? There was a magazine called Creep Show, wasn't there?
I believe so. Yes.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I remember, and the horror magazines were different than the comic books. I mean, they still were comic booky, but they were much bigger. They're like a magazine. I don't know why
Mhm.
that happened, but it did. Do you remember that, Eric?
I don't remember seeing them on the shelf, but I do remember picking them up later or seeing them. But yeah, they were larger, kind of like the Turtles books. They were larger
Yeah,
when they first came out than
yeah,
regular books. I think it was just easy to do than downsizing it to a comic book size. They had probably already had the press set up for
right.
that size.
No, I think they were just going through a magazine company.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because I used to religiously buy heavy metal, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and of course that came in a magazine format as well. And sitting next to it would be these horror comics, and I'd pick one up every now and then, or I'd pick up a Fangoria or what have you, just along with my heavy metal purchase because I had a pull a list at my favorite comic book store, so I go in every Monday. It's Wednesday now though, but when I was younger, it was Monday, and I go and pick up my pull list at the comic book store, but they didn't have the heavy metal and that kind of stuff there. They were just comic books only. So I used to
Mhm.
go to the pharmacy and pick up my heavy metal. But I did read, not religiously, but I did read a bunch of those things. But we're going back a little bit further here, and I just kind of wanted to go through and take a look at some of these panels and some of the art from the past is really, really good. And I think we have this misconception, and I think this is Stan Lee's fault in a way, or Jack Kirby maybe, because we have this idea that older comic books are kind of wonky and not great art. This is not true, you know, not true at all. Now Kirby, of course, he had a kind of weird style. But what he had done was he had his own style, but he also created this really good feel of action and movement. That was Kirby's thing, right?
Mhm.
But what do you think, Eric, in comparison to the stuff that Marvel came out with, the art level, in comparison to some of these old horror books that were just a ridiculous level of art going on?
No, I think it's all great looking classic comic art. I mean, if you go look at even the horror, you go look at the Western books and the old romance books from the
Yeah,
50s and 60s. They all had great art in them. And it was before everything was all tights and capes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just feel like a lot, not all, but a lot of the horror, because horror was enormous. It was just this huge block of things that people were just consuming like crazy. But
Mhm.
I just feel that a lot of the art was better than what we got from the initial years of Marvel. I
Yeah,
just
I can
had
agree with
That
that.
might be
Yeah.
sacrilege, but I just feel it's true. What do you think about that, Thunder? I mean, you're not actually a collector of comic books, but you've seen them.
Hmm. What do I think about what specifically?
Well, my point is, I think that some of the art we were seeing in the horror genre that got
Mhm.
absolutely hammered was better than what we saw Stan Lee pushing when Marvel first came out.
Oh, definitely. Just like it was very similar in film too. The special effects and cinematography and horror around that time was just far and away better than anything anyone else was doing. Um, and I don't know why. That's a pretty odd thing that
Yeah,
both of those mediums had higher production values. You have to remember. I mean, think about the time when Marvel started to take over, right? The '60s and '70s. Just think about the great actual horror movies that came out
yeah,
during those times, like literal, like ones that caused people actual mental trauma. They were so bad. They were
yeah.
so horrible. Um, that doesn't happen anymore, and it's kind of interesting that that was in a way an echo. And I don't know if these books ever caused anybody any actual mental issues, but they were beautiful comparatively as far as just like the attention to detail and the aesthetic. I've seen them. I've read some of them. Um, and it's horror's not my thing. I don't really get into it. It just doesn't do anything for me. But I think one of the reasons it went away is because one of the reasons why Marvel ended up winning is because the demographic was it was smart. The superhero genre, I should say, ended up winning because of demographics. It was marketed to the people who actually like comics more, and horror is, whether anybody likes to admit it or not, now especially, it's aimed at females. Um,
That is
young
true.
young young men especially don't tend to like it. Not always, obviously there's exceptions, but they usually tend more for more heroics, more stuff like that, which comic books obviously used to do very well, um, and more of a overcoming adversity. Now you can do that with horror, and a lot of horror movies do exactly that. But I think that's one of the reasons why the, as people call it, the cape shit won out in the comic book genres, and all the other stuff kind of went away. But it's kind of weird because you can do that with any genre, right? Like I said, you could do it with horror, you can do it with sci-fi, you can do it with westerns, and westerns did it for 30 years in the mainstream zeitgeist of the country.
Yeah,
So it is an odd thing. I think it's really just suffering from their own success, to be honest. I think Marvel was so successful at reaching who they reached for so long that they kind of pushed everything out. And it's a shame. And I really hope it does make a comeback, because
yeah.
I think it would lead to a renaissance in comic books in America. That there's no reason that can't happen other
Well, that's
than lack of will to try new things. It's the only
that's
reason.
what happened in the late 40s and 50s, wasn't it? The superheroes after World War II, the sales just dropped off, so they
They
started
did.
going back to the westerns and the horror and all that. So that might happen again.
It could. I
I
hope it
I've
does.
said for a while that I think this decade, if the world doesn't fall completely apart, you're going to see a resurgence of westerns. You're going to see a resurgence of actual sci-fi that's zany, like out there stuff like we had in that time in the 50s and 60s, just really crazy ideas. And you're going to see a resurgence of cyberpunk, and we've already seen that. That's already
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
So I think the age of the superhero, if you want to call it that, as the primary, cultural pop culture thing, is pretty much done for. Now that doesn't mean it's going to go away forever, because these things come and go in cycles, and we're just due. We're due for a changing of the guard. We've had
Yeah.
superheroes dominating our culture for 25 years, really, because they've been so successful in the cinemas, and it's just, I think it's just time to move away from that and into just a more diverse forms of entertainment. And I think comic books need to do that as well, desperately. I see no reason not to. And in fact, in Europe, where they're having a renaissance in their comic book industry, a veritable golden age, from what I understand, that's why. Because they do everything.
They do.
They do
Yeah.
sci-fi, they do horror. I mean, pick a genre that's probably represented over there in some manner.
Well, one of the best ones I've seen coming out of France in particular is a pirate book.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, why
really
not?
good. It's gorgeous. But yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. And one of the interesting things you kind of pointed out that's I said it twice, is the fact that horror movies, I'd say in the 80s, I'd say is when it started, late 70s, early 80s, it did switch to trying to scare the ladies
Yeah.
almost exclusively. I mean, they did that before, but they exclusively done, and it works. I mean, because the man is, taking the girl out for the date to go see a horror movie. It's a great horror movie. A horror movie is a great date movie, actually. A lot of people think, oh, you got to go see Meg Ryan. No, no, take your girl to see a horror movie, because they are designed toward the women. Because men in those movies are just a kill. They're just a blood bag to for your one of your whatever kills you have, or your body count. Of course, because if you want to horrify the male, then you want to take away his ability to do what men naturally do and protect. That's where the horror comes in. They're just uselessness, their weakness, where they can't get it done, right? That's the horror element for men, not being able to
Yes.
protect what you love. But for women, it's just the threat of danger to themselves.
I think one of the other things that is more of a thing men worry about would be like insanity. And
Yeah.
some of the best horror movies of all time are about a man going insane.
Hmm.
And that there's a reason for that. It's because that is more terrifying to most men, especially, and most people really, but definitely to men, than nearly anything else. Because that everything you just said is not only true, but there's nothing you can do about it. If you literally were to lose your mind, which can happen, I mean, that's hell on earth, right? So I think once it went to just a quick kind of scare or gore porn like it was in the 70s and 80s,
Hmm.
and then these quick startling kinds of scares, jump scares and things like it's become, we lost something. It doesn't get in your head anymore. And for a long time, horror stuff got in your head. Now, there's still a lot of the goofy, gory, over the top, stuff like that going on. But I think the stuff that pretty much everybody agrees, the classics, the actual classics, were mind freaks, right? They messed you up.
Yeah.
You had to think about them for a minute. You maybe didn't sleep well that night after you watched it the first time.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have no trouble with the female centric horror. That can be fun too. But I would
Yes.
like to see some more of the actual psychological horror, or the impotent man horror. I mean, it's more for our pleasure, right? But it's unbalanced, as many things are. Just quick question though, Eric. I mean, I know we really can't talk about horror comics in general because we're just not of that generation. Yeah.
Right.
But what is one of your favorite old horror movies, though?
Oh, I watched it back in October, and I remember watching it as a kid quite a bit. I always liked it. And it's kind of corny to watch now, but The Blob.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. That is a good one. Yeah. A lot of fun. What about you, Thunder? Any old ones you like?
The old one. Well, how old are we talking?
Black and
For
white.
me, old would be
Black and white.
black and white. Ooh, the original Frankenstein, not Frankenstein, sorry, Dracula, the original one, the way back one. That's barely. I don't even think there's a. I think it's a silent movie, or
Oh
Nosferatu is
wow.
what it's called, but that's what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's terrifying and ghoulish. The vampires look ghoulish instead of pretty.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of good old movies. I love the old B stuff myself. A fun B. But I still think, as far as the old black and white horror movies, I don't know why, but my favorite is Curse of the Werewolf. I really like that movie.
Good.
I've seen it 5 or 6 times in my life, which is rare. I hardly ever watch a movie more than once,
My
but I just
favorite
enjoy it.
actual horror movie is The Shining, and it's not even close. It's a movie I can't even watch anymore because it messes me up for days. I'll be terrified of it for days after I watch it. It's just such a mind f.
Yeah, it's a good one. How about for you, Eric, with more modern ones?
Modern, Shining, but he already said Shining, so I'm going to go Poltergeist.
Ah,
It's
interesting.
good too.
I say Alien.
That's a
Alien's
good one
good
too.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thing.
another great one from the same time area, right in that same area, about a decade there, is Jaws. Jaws is a great horror
Oh,
movie.
that is a good
It's
horror
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, the thing with the reason I pick Alien, it is a great movie. It's well paced. It's a good flick. But the reason I say that's my favorite, it's not my favorite horror movie. My favorite horror movie is the remake of The Haunting, which everyone else seems to hate. But the sound development in that movie is freaking epic. But anyway, the reason I choose Alien is because in my life I've had one, I guess you could call it a nightmare, kinda. At least I remember that I didn't like it. Because I'm a weirdo. I don't have nightmares. I'm usually the one that's chasing the monster in my dream, not the other way around. Right? Now, seriously, that's my dreams are like that. So I don't have nightmares. But I remember after watching the Alien, I was really young. I probably was too young to watch it actually, and I remember waking up in the morning and feeling discomfort from I wasn't sweating or upset or nothing, but I do remember discomfort. So my point being, Alien is the only movie that actually gave me a nightmare in my entire life. So how could I not
Wow.
count it, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah, but Curse of the Werewolf is a good movie, dude. We got Roger here who says he likes Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, there's a question. Nightmare on Elm Street is, even though it had many sequels, some are good, some are not, it is what it is. It didn't change itself. But Friday the 13th, from the first movie to everything after that, it's a completely different take. The original Friday the 13th is an actual movie. It's just a movie with a mystery thriller twist at the end. It's not really a horror movie per se. But and the other ones, of course, are all about Jason, and eventually he does get his hockey mask. What, in 3 or 4, something like that. But I'm curious, Roger, is it the first thriller Friday the 13th you like, or is it the Jason stuff? I'm kind of curious. Let me know. Well, what do you guys think about the slasher genre in general? Because that's what Thunder was talking about. How things shifted to it being more horror to scare the girls more than the guys, right? And with the slasher genre was, of course, Black Christmas and things like that that made that popular. What do you think about things like Jason Thunder? Did I lose him? What about you, Eric?
I'm here.
Uh,
Sorry, I was I was muted. Um, I don't dislike them. I think
Yeah,
the original set of slasher movies, like you're talking about from like the '80s and whatnot, those most of them are fine for what they are. I mean, they kept making them for a reason because people kept going to see them, and they do a decent enough job. But what came from them was just a ton of terrible slasher movies that aren't any good, that are just they're just not good movies, like objectively. Like you can't, like the function and the form of this movie is poor. Whereas a couple of I don't remember which numbers because I'd have to go check, but a couple of the, like, Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th are actually really good movies, just on their own, just as movies. Like the first Friday the 13th is a good movie. Um, it kind of has the same problem for me like Watchmen does. Whereas Watchmen is great, but what came because of Watchmen, because of the impact it's had, has been horrible. And I think that's kind of the same thing that those movies did to the entire genre of horror. Is because they were so successful and they were a certain type of movie, which was much more about the quick scare, not the psychological, not the the long build up to the scare. It was much more about just the jump scare.
yeah,
Um, Everything has pretty much become that. Now, there's been a shift away from that in the last, like, I don't know, probably 10 years, where we have got some more psychological horror, more creepy horror,
yeah.
but it's just not as good as the old stuff. That stuff came up before I was born, so it's not even like a generational thing. It's just objectively not as good. And that's a shame because the horror genre is a keystone genre for uh, cinema and for everything, really. I mean, from literature to movies to television. There's no reason it shouldn't still be as popular as it used to be. But I think the main reason is they abandoned half the audience, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and there are some good ones that come out every now and then. But one of the problems with modern horror, so particularly slasher horror, which is pretty much all we get, right, is the
Hmm.
fact that they're so cheap to make, and they're easy to make profit on, and they just have run out of ideas. It seems because every
Yeah.
new movie, supposed franchise that comes out, it's got this new weird bad boogeyman that
Hmm.
isn't. It's just a stretch. It's like your creativity is absolutely bankrupt. But then again, you also get stuff like the Conjuring series, which not every movie in it's good. Not all the Annabelles. And the first one, I'm surprised they made a second one because the first one isn't good. And yeah, Rona, of course, it wasn't very good at all. But those some of those Conjuring movies are really good. And why? Because they go back to the classic style of a horror movie, right? It's and
Right.
they do a really good job with it. But we see so many of these things like Truth or Dare. I mean, my God, Slender Man. It's so bankrupt in its creativity. It says, "Hey, we got this weird guy. If you say his name 5 times in the mirror, yeah, yeah, okay, thank you." We've seen it before, and we're just not getting much creativity because it's this rote, just a format that they just keep printing. You know, I don't know. But I do have a question for Eric, though. I kind of have stopped on one of these inside first panels here, and look at the
Hmm.
art, dude. Look at it.
I'm digging it. I really like
Yeah,
it.
it's really
Except for
good.
that weird hunchback. That's kind of creeping me out.
That's supposed to. But I mean, this is from like the 40s and 50s, dude. That is really good. Look at it. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, I do love it. That would make, if you got blown up, you'd like to see that as a poster on your wall.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's right. That's right. And there and honestly, these ones I'm going through here, I just found a page that had them listed like this, so I thought it would be easy for the show. But these aren't even the best art I've seen. There's some really, really good art. I can't. I'm not big up on all the artist names and stuff, but you got some of the best comic book artists of all time coming out of this era. You just really do, and we hardly ever talk about them. So much so that I can't even name them off the top of my head. Although if I heard it, I'd be, oh yeah, that guy, right? But there's some really amazing artists that came out of this era. And my point for today was to talk about something that wasn't superhero, and also kind of promote you guys to go read some of these old things. They're not bad. They're actually quite scary. They really are. Just the concepts and the ideas. It isn't all about blood and gore. It's often about the like Thundero was saying, the psychological.
Yeah.
Let me see if the chat has anything here to say. Yeah, they're talking about they like the slasher aspect of it. It stuck with them. That's cool. I just subjected myself to the Leprechaun the other day, dude. The Leprechaun is great fun. That's horror. That's horror comedy though. Well, old Willow's kicking ass in that movie. It was a really fun movie. Did you guys see Leprechaun?
A
Yes.
long time ago.
Yeah, and then once again, these idiots in their remaking, they did a remake of Leprechaun not too long ago, and they made a serious horror movie. It wasn't good, but they tried to make a serious horror movie. It's like, did you miss the point? Did you watch the movie? I mean, really, like the Evil Dead remake we saw not too long ago, where they have the girl instead of, they have a female Ash instead of our Ash, right? Bruce Campbell,
Mm.
and they made a serious horror movie, and it had a couple of good things that were like, oh, that's a nice set piece, but did you miss the point? It's comedic. They don't how could they miss that point, Eric? How?
They don't care. They're just looking. They're looking at the IP like, oh, this made some money back in. It's popular still. Let's try to make some money off
I don't know.
it. Go back to that panel before that.
The one with the werewolf.
Yeah, get the guy's throat.
Oh yeah, he's ripped out.
It's
Yeah,
already ripped out.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this is, Thunder was talking a little bit earlier about the fact that, the psychological effect, and of course that I can't remember his name offhand, but that psychiatrist, a well-renowned one, his main push to the Congress in America was that this was psychologically damaging the youth and creating,
Right.
delinquency. was and creating homosexuality as well. That's it. We have to
Yeah,
fight.
you got Batman and Robin right there.
Yeah, that's right. And
Why is
so
this guy wearing shorts in the snow?
I think he's like he's German.
He's me.
He's
Yeah,
German.
he's me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't get cold.
Yeah, just don't get cold. Yeah, but so there was a psychological element according to that psychiatrist. But it's the same kind of thinking that we see with people that think video games create cause people to do harm and things, and there is no
Right.
evidence that's ever come out of it. And of course, that is one of the disappointing things that President Trump had talked about was he seemed to have someone in his ear and he was talking about it as well, what's going on with this? At least he didn't condemn it. He would just say, we should look into this. Of course, that person who was talking to her didn't tell him, well, we've already looked into it how many dozen times already? So, yeah, that's a constant thing. Let's see here. Raythu says, I wish Dean Schneider would have made another Strangleland. It was pretty good and not at all what you'd expect from a rock star. It was body horror suspense thriller with no gore. Yeah, Dean Schneider's badass. I like Dean quite a bit. And it's funny with old Tipper Gore and her attempt, boy, she picked the absolute worst one to pick on, right? Absolute worst. Because his music is almost Christian in a way. I mean, if you really look at the lyrics, and she just didn't bother to read the lyrics. I mean, how you're going to go to the Senate and you're going to try to censor things, and you don't even bother to read the lyrics of that's what you're attacking. I mean, Jesus, your husband did a better job. Look how much he's tricked the world with all this nonsense, and he's made a lot of money too.
Hmm.
Yeah, he has. But Leprechaun goes to the hood. Yeah. Yeah, but come on, it's just comedy. Eric says quite a few of the comics are PD and can be found to read on the Comic Book Plus. Yep, yep. Pixel says, "Oh geez, my audio wasn't working. I was talking and thought Chester was just ignoring me." Is he in here?
Yeah, he's in here. I was wondering why he wasn't
I was
saying
waiting
it.
for him to say something.
So the weird thing was my audio was muted, and so because there's 2 levels of mute on this thing through Discord, I had forgotten about because I had push to talk turned on. So even though my mic was supposedly hot, I still needed to push to talk to actually get it to work.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah,
So,
now it's here.
Well, what do you have to say about horror comic books, sir?
Not a whole lot because I didn't really read them. I've seen a few over the years and stuff, but I never really got into them. The same thing with horror movies. Black and white horror movies, I never really watched. I'm trying to think if I've watched any of them. The only one I can remember is Dawn of the Dead, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
The original. That's not a bad movie.
Yeah, the original. But I really didn't get into horror until about the 80s. That's when, because I really wasn't even born until 79 anyway, so I didn't see anything in the 70s. But Freddy and all that kind of stuff really kind of stood out for me. But I have to agree, Poltergeist is one of those movies that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
But I think like a lot of the slasher movies at some point realized they became self-aware, and so
sure.
they knew that they became a comedy really, and there was a whole group of people that love those movies specifically for the antics in them and the one-liners and all that stuff. And so Jason's walking through the streets of New York City, right?
Yeah,
and, stupid stuff like that where it no longer was really a horror movie so much as it was a kind of a wink and a nod sort of thing.
Yeah, it was fun. And they did become self-aware, and then now here we are 30 years later, and they've completely forgot about this self-awareness, and they're trying to make serious movies about people grinning in some movie called Truth or Dare, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. They get dumber though, and they keep making them. They keep coming out with these new boogeymen and their weird little rules, whatever.
Yeah. Have you ever seen In the Mouth of Madness?
Oh yeah, baby. That's one of the best Lovecraftian adaptations there are.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I saw in the 90s. I think it was. It really, really stuck with me. I've seen some other ones too that kind of did that to me, like The Ring when I first watched that one first time through.
The original or the American remake?
I didn't see Ringo. I didn't know about it because I'm an American. We don't pay attention anywhere else except for the U.S. most of the way. But the Ring, Grudge, and all that. But yeah, the first Ring U.S. version stuck with me for a while as well. I actually couldn't couldn't sleep that night.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a great concept. The sad thing about what you just said, the fact that people don't pay attention to Japanese stuff, Ring or Ringu, if you want to go with the Japanese pronunciation, is way better than the American one. Way better. Epic levels better.
Oh yeah.
Whereas on the other hand, the American Grudge or Ju-on, as it's called here, is better than the Japanese one. So I mean, I would recommend Ringu over the American Ring, and I'd recommend Grudge over Ju-on. But the original Ringu is just one of the most perfectly made horror movies of all time. It's just freaking awesome, which is surprising when you understand how broken the Japanese movie industry is. And it's shocking too because we all know the name Kurosawa, right? Kurosawa-san, and he
Yes.
not only did he make a lot of highly respected movies, he changed how you made movies. A lot of these dolly shots and all these kind of things that they use in modern filmmaking, he created, right? He's incredibly influential. So you had one of the most important movie makers of all time in your culture, and then what happened? What happened? I don't know what the hell. Because the problem in Japan is clearly the directors, right? Because when you see a Japanese actor who is horrible in any Japanese flick, when you put him into something with a good Western director, they're great. Like Ken Watanabe, for instance, right? If the director is good. But here in Japan, their industry just sucks major balls, dude. It's so bad. But well, whatever. You know. I don't know anything about Japan or other than ninjas and samurai. Yeah, that's the problem, Chiron. But there are a lot of there used to be some really good directors here, but not in a long time, not in many decades.
Chester,
Yeah.
what is your opinion, since we're talking about horror, of Mr. Alfred Hitchcock?
Um. To be fair, I probably like the book versions more than the film adaptations. I would say, but I did like Mr. Hitchcock stuff. Actually, when I was a kid, maybe Eric can associate with me here. I didn't, when we were young, we didn't have a lot of pres toys and stuff. It's not like today where there's just so much junk everywhere, and the kids, you literally have to throw away crap every year. We didn't have like
Yeah.
that. Only had a few toys, a few possessions, and one of my possessions was a record player, right? You know those it wasn't wood, it was like heavy thick cardboard box with the record player floating inside of it. You know what I'm talking about? The little square ones?
Yes.
Yeah. I had that, and I had a very small collection of albums, most of which were 45s. And but I did have a couple LP. One of my LP was Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and I used to listen to that all the time, dude. And my favorite one was this boy and he there was a construction site where they were building new homes and near his house, and he used to go to it just to kind of play around. And even though he was told many times not to be there, and he had done a couple of naughty things while he was there, and he ends up getting eaten by rats. But that one I really loved, and I stuck to it. But I used to listen to Alfred Hitchcock's album over and over and over. Yeah,
Chester, I'm sorry. I think I had more toys than you.
I didn't have many. I didn't.
I'm actually currently selling a lot of my GI Joe, my vintage GI Joe figures at 3 3/4 on eBay. I got $100 for one the other day. I was like, damn.
I never owned a GI Joe ever. Yeah.
But I did have a little record player like that, and two of my favorite 45s was "Return to Cinder" by Elvis and Snoopy and the Red Baron.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I remember that one. Yeah, that was good. I also, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I also own the Brady Bunch album. Yep.
I didn't have that one, but I did have a Disco Duck.
A Disco Duck. Yeah, sure. But my collection was very small. But my parents had one of those. You remember those old hi-fis that would sit on the as a piece of furniture? Those big old giant hi-fis.
Yeah, the
And
sliding top, and the record player was down underneath with
yeah.
sometimes an 8-track, and yeah.
Yeah, and they had on the sides where you could store albums and stuff.
Mhm,
My parents had a pretty large collection of Pat Boone and Elvis Presley and Gomer Pyle, can't forget, Jim Neighbors. They had a lot of that kind of stuff. Dean Martin, which I wasn't really a big fan of, so I didn't listen to it very much. But yeah, no, it was a fun toy. But I didn't have a lot of toys as a kid. I really didn't. Let's see what the chat here says. Carmen says, I had a robot with magnets. I could pull his arms off. Was neat. That's cool. Devilish Boardman says, with all the various yokai stories and such, Japan should have a cool horror scene. Well, it's probably the best movies that they make or their horror, although it's been a while. And you'd be surprised they don't use the yokai as much as you think they should, because we're talking about anime now, because the live action is just absolute trash fire. But the anime stuff, they're way more interested in adapting some kind of Abrahamic religious idea into a story. They very rarely take their own culture and turn it into something. It's rare, and it's weird, but that's what they do. Yeah. To me, Alfred Hitchcock was more suspense, more than horror to me. That's fair. I remember Alfie Presents too. Kyron said, yeah, it was great. Ray Thulu says, Kurosawa's Ran is probably the finest use of color saturation I've ever seen. When the Ashigaru gunners open up, but the only audio is music and the banners wheeling about the battlefield. Yeah, Ran is a good movie. Actually, I have a movie poster from the original Ran. Because when I was in Hawaii, I worked as a property manager there. So I kind of went around and dealt with a lot of different buildings, and I kind of became friends with Luigi Fumagalli, who's an Italian artist, and he was Kurosawa's personal movie poster artist, and he had one of the original posters, and he signed it for me. I actually have that up on the wall in my
Sweet.
yeah, it is cool. It is gorgeous, by the way. Let's keep moving down here. It's a freaking masterpiece. Kurosawa's a good creator. My favorite is probably Yojimbo. I like that quite a bit. Rats, normally when boys are naughty, they go blind. Rod says. I had the now banned Cyclone Raider that would fire projectiles out of the wings. Yeah, kids can't play anymore. The world's dangerous. Yeah, we don't want them to get hurt. That was sarcasm. Could you tell? I hope so. Anyone ever read any of the Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigations YA series? I don't know if I might have. I preferred reading Hitchcock than to watching his movies. Running around the house, hitting your brother with him. Oh, okay. Chester was secretly a fanboy of Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family. But I loved the Partridge Family. Did you enjoy that, Eric?
I did. I didn't watch as much. I didn't like it as much as the Brady Bunch.
Well, no,
I always preferred the Brady Bunch over the Partridge Family.
Well, the Brady Bunch.
Like I always preferred the Munsters over Addams Family.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely true. But I'm a music kid, so maybe that's why I did enjoy the Partridge Family.
Well, probably, yeah. Yeah, because the Brady Bunch, their music numbers sucked.
Oh, they did. I own the album. I know. But the thing with the Partridge Family is it gave the world gumball rock, or gumball rock. That's what they call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or bubblegum rock. Sorry, bubblegum rock. And that guy, what was his name? Davey. What was his name? The singer boy. I can't remember his name. Someone in the chat help me out. But that guy could really sing. He really, really could sing. He was a great singer. Anyway, let me try to catch up with the chat.
Shoot, I can't remember his name, man. It's going to drive me crazy. I got to look it up.
Yeah, the chat is telling me the same thing. Had to pop back into my class for tonight. Oh, all right, dude. I wish you could have stayed longer. But anyway, let's move on while Eric does that and go on to our
David Cassidy.
David Cassidy. There it is. Yeah. Really good voice, man. Great singer. All right. Well, let's go on to our next thing here. Now, we talked about this a little bit, and Thunder, and I thought, why not take a look at it?
Get your first look inside the new Power Rangers series. I like where your head's at, because that is a good series. I haven't kept up with it actually in a while, so I know you're gonna need to catch up on it. But what I read of it was really good.
Yeah, no, I actually have read a few of them. They're not what you expect. Because I
No,
understand Power Rangers, the show that came out was dumb as shit. I get it, but
very goofy.
it
Yes.
was, but it was created for kindergarten kids. It was made for little kids, just like Kamen Rider and all that kind of stuff. It's for little kids, so it did what it was supposed to do, right? And I think that's why when they came out with the movies later, and particularly the remake they did here a while back, it was so poorly received, is because people are or they're remembering their childhood, and as an adult you can't really like I when I was a kid, my favorite thing was Captain Kangaroo. Loved it, right? Mr. Green Jeans and the moose there, and I just love Captain
And Bill
Kangaroo
Cosby.
and Bill Cosby. That's right. But I actually had a opportunity in the past few years to find a video and go watch a couple of old Captain Kangaroo again. They were horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah, I did the same thing with the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon.
Oh yeah.
And I used to love it when I was a kid, and I went back and watched it, and I was like, oh, this is not very good.
No, it's not.
It's not bad. It's just nowhere near as good as I remembered it being.
Well, you know what aged way better was Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yes.
They
Yeah,
aged way
they do.
better. Yeah. But anyway, it's just the way it is. But this comic book, the point I'm trying to get to is this comic book, this ain't that. This
No.
is not that, dude. This is straight up more. It's more GI Joe-esque as
Yes,
far as
which is what the Power Rangers should be if they're
Yeah.
trying to make it more mature in its tone. That's how it should be treated. More GI Joe, more like a military force or paramilitary, much more just that general tone, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily make them a military force, but you get my idea. The general idea is they should behave much differently than they do in this TV show.
I agree.
And I think these series, because there's a couple of them actually, but this one, the Power Rangers comic series, the recent ones, do that beautifully. They get the tone right. It feels like stuff actually matters more. It takes itself seriously, but not too seriously, because that would just be silly. I think it's a fantastic series, and if you were ever a fan of Power Rangers as a kid, especially, you should give it a read, and I think you'll love it because it's really good.
Yeah, it's an aged up version because
Yes.
all that Go Ranger stuff that Power Rangers based on that came out of Ultraman, right? And Ultraman was made for little kids, and it just kind of evolved into the Five Ranger thing. Whereas the older kids were watching things, and when I was young, like Yamato or Gatchaman or things like that, which are more like what this is now, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Devilish Boardman says, "Don't you badmouth Kamen Rider." I'm not badmouthing it at all. I'm just saying it was made for little kids. That's its intention, and it does exactly what it should do. I remember exactly when my kids grew out of Kamen Rider. It's when they started going to elementary school, right? My son loved Kamen Rider. My daughter wasn't a huge fan, but my son loved it. And then when he was in first, maybe second grade, he wasn't into Kamen Rider anymore. He was more into Rokuman, Mega Man, things like that. Anyway, let's take a look at the art here. So that's pretty nice. What do you think, Eric?
No, it's pretty good for what it is. I mean, for Power Rangers, I mean, it's a lot better than I would expect. Since Power Rangers kind of came out, my kids watched Power Rangers. I really didn't. I'd almost expect it to be cartoony, but I'd probably pick this up. I like it.
Yeah, no, my kids watched it too. Not Power
I
Rangers,
love those
but
suits. Those suits are awesome.
they are good. Yeah.
Yeah. They're completely. I'm fairly certain those are completely original too. Those aren't in any of the shows.
Now, why did they block Chiron just saying Mega Man? What the hell do these people?
No
Well,
idea.
because you know how Booster says Mega.
Oh,
Yeah.
Captain Power. Yeah, I remember that, dude. But the art here looks really, really good, dude. This is definitely anime-esque right here. But
This is what the movie that you're talking about should have been. If
Yeah.
they weren't going to go full camp with it like the old show, then it should have been the tone of these books, 100%.
Yeah.
And they would have succeeded far better, far greater than they did with whatever the nonsense was that they gave us.
Oh, that movie was stupid. It was horribly done. You
Yeah,
took the only thing was somewhat okay was the last 20 minutes of that movie with the big battle. They took
yep.
way too long for them to actually become the Power Rangers. It was just a hot mess. A hot mess, dude.
Yeah, I don't know whose genius idea it was for the first 75% of the movie to not see a Power Ranger
Yeah.
except for right at the beginning. Like, what are you doing?
Well, dude,
So
they spent $105 million making that movie.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's not good. It the special, I guess, from Boom. But I did read the end of a series a while back when I was doing Brad Ashworth's, you know, when he was doing his New Comic Wednesday stuff. I had to read a whole bunch of comics, and I did read some of them. They weren't bad at all, dude. They were pretty solid
No, they're
comics.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're much better than they deserve to be honest. Because the source material, and I've said this for years, the Power Rangers could be something serious. The basic concept is solid. It's all the other nonsense they do in the show and whatnot around it that's goofy and campy, but the basic idea is really solid and it could work.
Yeah.
And it does in these comic books very well.
Although they really need to burn Alpha 5 down to the ground. They really do. Yeah. Really, really, really. But yeah, these great looking books, and like I said, I've read a couple of them. They're pretty good books, man. And maybe it's because it's too close to MAGA. Devilish Borden says, maybe because they blocked Mega Man. I had to approve it through. Why? These people, man, they just lost their damn. They've lost their reality.
Yes.
It's sad. Now, Alpha 5 definitely needs to die. Yeah, you got to kill that thing. I hate that thing. That's the thing I hate.
What's your prejudice for Alpha 5? What's the problem?
It's just the dumbest thing ever, dude. It's just so dumb. I understand it's not. These comics are a different conversation we're having here because they're actually pretty good. They're more serious. But the TV show, of course, not for me. It's for little kids. I get that, but I hated that stupid Alpha 5, man. Because every Go Ranger or five, it just means 5 Ranger. Every 5 Ranger show they have here, and trust me, there are dozens and dozens of them, right?
Yeah.
And every one of them has the ubiquitous Alpha 5. Every damn one of them. And
Yep.
it's always some stupid comic relief robot, and it's Japanese comedy, which is dumbass. It's just not good, dude. It irritates the hell out of me because I was one of those parents that up until they were teenage kids, I paid attention to everything they watched. I sat and watched it with them. I made sure that the content that they were consuming was that was approved by me, right? Everything. And therefore, I had to watch all this stuff. And the Kamen Rider never bugged me, even though it's for little kids. But the Gold Ranger stuff, my God, oh well. But they gave a lot of they put a lot of panels in here for us to look at, and you guys, if you especially, I think Thunder is right, especially if you like Power Rangers when you were a kid, this is the grown-up version of it, and you might like it. Yeah.
It's like I said, it's what the movie should have been. If they were going to make an actual movie with full, $100 million budget, it should have been this. It should have been, and in fact, it should have been the story of the first series of this, because it was great.
So, can you explain to me who these people are? Are they New Rangers? Or are they Power Rangers? Different outfits?
They look like
What?
they look like the ones from the show. They look.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. I'm pretty sure that's Jason, Trini, and Zach.
Yeah.
Black,
Well,
red,
it's
yellow.
not it's not the show I remember. That's all.
Well, they're grown up. They're clearly older and more professional. But this is not your childhood Power Rangers. This is an aged up version of it. And like I said,
Okay.
I enjoyed it. But yeah, that movie though, that the remake they did, that was abominable. I mean, those old movies that came out before when my kids were young and they watched them. They're horrible movies, but at least they are what they're supposed to be. right?
Yeah.
They had their action from the beginning. They had their goofy bad guys from were doing what they were supposed to be doing. It was what it was supposed to be. This remake was, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. I really don't. It was just dumb. Waste of money. Wasting money. Devilish Boredom says, original Kamen Rider was pretty dark early on. Then came the cheese. That's true. The original Kamen Rider came out in the 70s, was much more serious. But, for the past, I'd say past 150 years, maybe 140 years in Western culture, and of course our culture has huge effect on Japanese culture. We have been softening down everything. It started with the fables, the Mother Goose and Grimm fairy tales and stuff, and they've just been softening it and softening it and softening it. I'm kind of curious how many people with their version of, just say, Little Red Riding Hood, for instance. Let me ask, Slick, what happens to Little Red Riding Hood at the end of the book in your childhood version?
Oh, she saves her grandmother and kills the wolf and blah 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 and all that other stuff. But in the real story, though,
no, don't do that. Don't say anything. Eric, in your childhood memory, what happened to Little Red Riding Hood?
My childhood memory would be just the same as Slick's, but it is not that way in the real story.
No, it's not. What about you, Thundera? What happened in your childhood memory of Little Red Riding
Hood? I don't have a childhood memory of it at all. Really? I just don't. I was never
raised in a cage. Poor Thundera.
But
he saw the adult versions, and they were a lot different.
Quite literally, when I was younger, I'm the youngest in my family on both sides, almost a generation between me and the next oldest. So I was raised on everything I was raised on was 10 years older than me. So if I was 10 years old, I was watching stuff or reading stuff designed for 20-year-olds, stuff like that. So I never really had any access to any of that stuff, like any of the fairy tales or anything, until I got a little older and went back and actually read the real ones and was horrified that they showed these to children because they're brutal. But at the same time, as I got a little older from then, I was like, no, they should show that to children because the real world is brutal, and they were in an age that was far less pampered than the one we're in now.
Oh yeah.
They've all been Disney-fied now, and I mean even the Sleeping Beauty and all those Sleeping Beauty in the original story. I believe it's the king comes by and has his way with the Sleeping Beauty quite a few times.
He does, yeah. There's rape in the story. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say rape. Okay, raped her.
I'm not afraid of YouTube, dude. Yeah, it is what it is. The woodsman saved Little Red Riding Hood in a childhood story. Well, yeah, now that's what I would remember more. The woodman came in and saved, but I was lucky because.
Well, that's what I meant. Is like the grandmother got everything turned out okay. So.
Yeah, well, everything turned out well. But I'm lucky because I actually had access to a very old version of the Grimm fairy tales in the giant book form, right? And I was actually able to read those because like Thundero, my mom was the youngest of 13 children.
Yeah.
So I had cousins. You know how you guys joke about my famous cousin? She's my second cousin. Her father is my actual cousin. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean that I'm just like him. I had the same experience. But of course, Little Red Riding Hood, she dies, Grandma dies, and the wolf dies too, because the woodsman, who ironically, I should do a whole show about this. That woodsman is actually Jack, by the way. The giant slayer. It actually is Jack, and I should do a whole presentation on the fact that nearly all of those old fairy tales, Jack is in there somewhere. And it's actually coming out of ancient Egyptian stories that you can actually
do a whole show on all the fairy tales.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting because you can actually track Jack through the Aesop fables as well.
I'm Jack's complete lack of surprise.
But yeah, no, it doesn't turn out okay. But they've been doing that for a long time, softening stuff. Let's move on. Now, I thought let's be open-minded and let's have an honest conversation about this.
DC's Brazilian Wonder Girl lands first post-Future State comic series.
Okay. Now, She is the daughter of an Amazonian and a Brazilian river god. So she is full god, right? She's Amazonian, which are god close, angel like, and of course her father's an actual river god, right? So this is a powerful supernatural person. And in this story, they're telling us that they want to bring in a lot more of South American gods and characters into the storyline. Now, here's the thing: we look at it, and this of course is not Wonder Woman. This is Wonder Girl, and she's not replacing Wonder Woman. She's just another version, part of the team, I guess. But we talked about diversifying things and kind of telling stories from other cultures. Well, here they are. They're doing exactly that. And although I know it will be full of wokeness, I'm sure. Um, the concept doesn't bug me at all. I kind of like the idea, actually. What do you guys think?
All I want to know is if she has full Brazilian.
Now, is she waxed? Yeah, of course, I knew that would be the first joke. I wrote it down even. See, it's right here. But no, I'm serious. I mean, because we know there's going to be nonsense in here because they can't stop. But aside from that nonsense, the idea of bringing in South American culture and South American ideas into the superhero world in a legitimate way, not like what did with Bane, and okay, he's from there, and that's about all you get. But actually having culture in the comic book. Like I said, I'm kind of behind the idea. What do you think, Thunder?
I'm not against it. I think it's what they need to do instead of trying to replace and rewrite the continuity and the stories and lores of actual, established heroes. If you're going to do it, at least make a new character. I think it's kind of cheesy that. Why do you think they went with a Brazilian? Just why do you think it was?
Because she's not white.
No, because of the Amazon. That's why. That's why. I guarantee you that's why. That was the thought process that went into it.
Maybe.
So, well, Wonder Woman's an Amazon, and she's from the Amazon. It's perfect.
So you're
the god of the Amazon River. Yeah.
It's just so dumb.
But so you're assuming that they are so dumb that they don't know why the Amazon is called the Amazon?
Yes.
That is what I was assuming as well. I think they are that dumb.
You guys have no faith in your fellow humanity.
No, not if they work for.
Not now.
No, yeah.
Not at all.
I think it's a good idea, though. I'm just I said, it's so simple. I'm afraid that's where what we're going to get real. It's going to get real stupid because it's coming from a stupid place.
It is. Joelle Jones is involved, and I dig the girl, so she does good work.
Yeah, because if you read this article, it looks like her adventures are mainly going to be taking place in Brazil, not in America.
Cool.
I mean, she's going to be in Brazil. I like it. Yeah,
so,
I don't hate it either. I think
Joelle Jones isn't, like I said, if Joelle Jones is the writer and artist, I'm down for it. She always, everything I've read of hers, she's done it justice. So
yeah,
no problem there.
I worry that the thing I worry about is, like I said, that the concept, the origin of the concept and why it's in Brazil and all these things is so obviously, at least to me, I could be wrong, maybe that's just a coincidence, but I highly doubt it, is so just dumb. Like, there's not even a word for it. It's just dumb. It's so simple-minded, and that worries me. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a simple idea and turn it into something great. Maybe they will. But I don't want them to just rehash heroes in different cultures and then pretend like they're doing something, because they're not.
Well,
I would much rather, if you're going to tell a Brazilian story, find some Brazilian lore. There's plenty of it in the Amazon, and tell that story. That would be way, way better, in my opinion.
That's why I mentioned
it could be a good idea. It could be a good idea.
It could be.
The Brazilians have now a storied history of Brazilian artists and creators. They have a large population, and if they make these things halfway affordable for that reason, they could sell books down there. It could make money. And again, hopefully it'll cross over to us up here in the northern hemisphere, and that would be a good thing too. I mean, I don't have any problem with this sort of thing, as long as
No?
it doesn't get ridiculously woke.
Well, it will be somewhat. There's no way around it. You know, it will have some of that. But from reading this article, they didn't say directly, but I kind of got the feeling of this future thing that they're talking about, which, as far as I know, is dead. We talked about that. It's dead. So I don't even know if this will happen. But whatever. It seemed from the article that they're going to be having many new wonder somethings, not just this new Wonder Girl.
Lots
There's
of
many others
Wunderkind.
around the world, other Amazonians she will be fighting with. So it sounds
Okay.
like that they're doing something like that. Which, if it's done right, I don't have a problem with that at all. But
Sure.
just this character in particular, I don't. I like the idea. I'd love to see them stick her in Brazil, stay there for most. I mean, you can do the big event stuff outside of South America, sure, but stick there, deal with the old cultures, put in new idea. I think it would be fun. So,
Yeah,
you know.
is she wearing a mask, or is that a
I think
tattoo?
it's just it's the native painting, which this is a mistake by
Oh,
Yara
okay.
because that she doesn't understand that is Aztec culture, which of course is up in Mexico. It's not Brazil. It's not South
Yeah,
American at all.
not even close.
But that's just her not knowing, not doing her research.
Mm.
But anyway,
Well,
Aaron?
here's my question: Is she going to be tied to Wonder Woman? Is there a Wonder Woman in this continuity?
Yes,
Is there,
yes,
the
they
Wonder
say
Woman
that.
we know?
They say
So
yeah.
how? Well, I guess we'd have to wait and see the story, of course. How do you tie those two together? How do you tie a random Brazilian girl and Wonder Woman together? Like, where's the connection?
Well, it
And that could
actually
be
talks about
interesting
that.
how they tell that story, I guess. But
Wild Weekend at Carnival.
Yeah, that's what it was. The salsa, the samba was too much.
Right. Well, they actually, I don't know, but it sounds like they might actually be stripping Diana of her Wonder Woman title. But so it actually talks about how it relates to Diana and the other Amazons. That's what I mean. They make that reference a couple times. So they are talking about how she's going to interact with her. But it sounds like from this article that Diana is no longer allowed to be. She's had her title stripped, is what it sounds like.
joyous.
Yeah.
So you're telling me she's Ironheart? Got you?
No, she is not Wonder Woman. She is Wonder Girl, and it says that she's going to be adventuring in Brazil.
Well, who? So there's just is no Wonder Woman?
I imagine someone else. So there'll be a black one, I'm sure.
Didn't they say Nubia Wonder Woman right there? Nubia Wonder Woman.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. There are many new Wonder Woman coming. Immortal Wonder Woman, Nubian Wonder Woman, and more. It feels like we're going to get a whole Wonder Woman universe of Wonder Women, I guess. I don't know.
Nubia, real one, a blade so black.
Yep. That's what we need. Let me check out the chat here and see what they say. The only true Amazons were in central Russia. Well, it's actually more toward the Ural Mountains, but I get your point. South Central Plains was some history that I forget handoff, but it was in Russia. I'm not going to get into it. Yeah, sure. Why did they call the Amazon River and jungle? Why do they call it Amazons? Do we know? Yes, we do. When the Spanish conquistadors came down and started doing all their shenanigans, they started seeing these people kind of peeking out through the bushes and looking at them through that, and they thought they were just a bunch of women because they were short and they had no facial or body hair, they had never seen people like this. Because keep in mind there is an Asian relation with the American natives, right? So they thought they were women warriors. So of course, in their culture, they have the memory of the great Amazonian fighters of the Greek time, and therefore they called them the Amazon, and they called this area Amazonia. So did I explain that clearly? That was clear. Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Yes, I know the European history on Amazons. Yes, okay. The Dark Ages, a load of Greek history was passed down via word of mouth. Only a few books actually survived there from antiquity. Yeah, true. But they're mentioned many times though. The Amazonians are mentioned all the way up into Roman times, where there's many mentioning of them, and they were actually a concern. So they were a real thing. and they were considered a threat. So there's that. Say woke Wonder Woman 20 times fast. Nope, I ain't doing it. Want an Australian Aboriginal Wonder Woman? You do. Uh, waiting on the obese non-binary amputee Wonder Woman. Yes, okay, all right. But the general concept, however, I like. Let's move on.
I like the art too.
Now, yeah, so do I. Go ahead, Thunder.
Look, previews for every Marvel comic arriving November 18th.
Okay, so we bash a lot of the nonsense that's going on here a lot, but we don't really talk about exactly what they're doing, do we? And I thought, well, let's do that. Let's take a look at what they got. Because this will be the last thing we do because of my time constraints. So let me just make sure I didn't have anything else. Those things are just, well, let me just cover them real quick. This right here, I only put off for one reason. Early WWE Royal Rumble 2021 betting lines predict surprising wins. Why are you betting on pro wrestling? How
Oh,
stupid
people
are
do all
you?
the time. Yeah, they do all
Why?
the time.
Why?
Because people will literally bet on anything.
Dude, it's
Anything.
100% scripted.
Yep.
I mean, it's rare to get someone actually to shoot on someone in a match. It's super rare. And if they do like that, you won't see them again. Right?
Not usually.
I just thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. What the hell are you
But
doing?
yeah, people
betting on-
do. I'm pretty sure you can find places online where people quite literally bet on just regular TV shows.
Yeah, but I mean, the bookies are stupid because what if your friend is one of the wrestlers or works backstage and you know who's going to win a match? It's completely unsecure. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense from the bookie point of view. I'm not talking about idiots who will bet on anything. That's fine. I'm talking about the bookies. Did I lose everybody?
No.
No.
The reason why they do it is because people are willing to. There's a demand, so they're meeting it.
All right, whatever.
So it's really that simple.
I get what Chester's saying. I just if
And
people wanna be
if you get
stupid with
caught
their
doing
money
that
on
stuff,
both sides, okay, well,
Yeah.
it happens.
most of the places that run these things, which the places that they're set up in, have incredibly strict laws against that sort of stuff. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but if you get caught doing it, you can get some serious time for it.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking on wrestling. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing but respect for these with these how much they put their body on the line for your entertainment. That's not my point. My point is, I don't understand the logistics of it. Anyway, moving on. Let's do this one first, real quick. Goodness gracious, do I have time? All right, I'm going to do it anyway. Go ahead, Thunder.
How Civil War II nearly ruined Captain Marvel. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Now, Spencer Connolly here, which is probably a
nearly
relative
ruined?
of mine, in some way, form, or another. Captain Marvel has been ruined in many, many, many ways. Civil War II was the least of the problem.
It was like nearly ruined. Like, good God.
It's just an odd concept. Because they've done so much to ruin Captain Marvel. In particular, I mean, Eric, I don't know how many, you may be slick as well, but Eric, you remember the old comic line where she was just working for Sword, I guess, and she was put in charge of Marvel and how they fell in love. And then when he died protecting Earth from alien invasion, he kind of just passed his power on to her as she died, and she was a wreck for a while, and then she kind of became a whore, and then things went on, and she finally got herself together. You remember that storyline?
Vaguely, yeah, but
Yeah.
the horror part I don't quite remember.
Now they turned her into quite a slut, actually. But
Yeah,
beyond,
she was, yeah.
yeah, they did.
She was more of a slut than Tigra, so
She was. They
Oh.
slutted her up pretty bad.
She was a slut, so that's pretty bad.
But here's the thing. So you got this great, great origin story, right? She's a government worker, basically. She's kind of put in charge of this aliens come on a planet. She's just kind of his, to make sure he gets what he needs, and is kind of looked after.
his girl Friday.
In a way. And during the process of that, of course, he turned out to be a great guy. He became Captain Marvel, and they fell in love. legitimately fell in love, and he died protecting the planet. And on his deathbed, he passed his power to her. Now I understand some of you go to get into the nega bands and all that kind of stuff. Let's not have that conversation, okay? We're just talking about the general concept of the story. What a great story! What a great story! Now what is she? Now what is it? What is she now? She is the lesbian face mark of Marvel. That's what she is. She's a freaking watermark, right? And you took this great idea for a character that, she was always mid tier. I get that, but it's a good story, dude. And you burn it
She's
out.
still mid tier.
She is, but I'm just, of course, they desperately want her not to be. But I'm just saying that what a waste. What a waste. Because that's a solid
Yeah.
story. It's a good love story. And they
Well, it's
just
a good
ruined
love
it.
story, and it's a good. I mean, there's so many iterations of her that you could have gone through several things in the where she's gotten to and how she's gotten to where she is.
Yeah.
But the where she is now is like, you know, feminism 101. So
And it's ridiculous. And the thing is that there's another concept here that I don't know that any of us can actually understand to have a proper opinion. But uh, they're desperately wanting a different market for their books. We can see this. They've been doing this for years, and that market has not materialized. And I think the reason why that market hasn't materialized is because they really want to sell the lesbians. It seems. But they don't understand that, especially with this book, that there aren't many of them. No matter how much of them they throw on TV in front of you, it's a very rare beast to find an actual lesbian. They're rare compared to population density. And therefore, in any population, those who are going to be interested in a comic book are going to be a lower percentage. It's not going to be all of them. So you're taking a very small demographic, and then you're looking at a very small percentage of that demographic, and you're trying to make money off of it. It's dumb because here's the thing: it irritates us when they take a great character and ruin it because it's bullshit, right? But what do you think women think about this? Do you think women appreciate lesbian heroes? Do you think
no,
women do?
and they don't appreciate mannish looking women.
No. Well, women aren't really into the lesbian thing. You know why, Thundero? Because
Because they like men.
yeah, they're not lesbians. Yeah, they like men. Yeah. So I really don't. I mean, I understand the incipient brain damage of these people. I get that. But the authority over it should be saying, yeah, we could have one of these books and see how it does, but we shouldn't do it to everything, right?
Well, who's running the show right now? It's
Well,
it's
Son of
not
Amanat,
people who want to
clearly.
make. Yeah, it's not people who want to make money. They want to make propaganda.
Yeah.
That's what they
Th-
are. That's what they're
This
doing.
one irritates me more than any of them. I mean, the Thor thing was just dumb because you're disrespecting an actual mythological religious character, and you shouldn't do that.
and,
But
and cultural icon at the same
and
time.
cultural
You
icon
know,
at
they
the
talk
same time.
about
Yeah.
cultural appropriation, and then they go
Yeah,
and
yeah.
fucking
Oh,
do
they
this.
do it all
So
the time. They do exactly what they say you're not supposed to do. But that's not my point.
yeah,
This one is the one that irritates me more than any of the other ones, really. I understand the anger with Thor, and I'm on board with you with that. But this one, because I grew up with Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, who came later. It was a great storyline that stuck with me. Because it was romantic. It was classically romantic, right? And that it's just classic storytelling, right? And you had this
hmm
great character, so much so that when my daughter was a little girl and Miss Marvel was still Miss Marvel, I bought Miss Marvel books for her and gave her comic books to read. Right. And then they took and they ruined this and they twisted it in the most ugly way because she is a character born of love and you twisted that love, you sick bastards. You sick bastards. You know what I mean?
sure, yeah, sure. And then they just totally discounted, Black Captain Marvel. So
Or Rambo. Well,
isn't that
she
nice?
died.
Eh,
She did die in the comics.
Well,
But
but even so, I mean, they there, and that's a good story. That could have been a good story too. They just, of course, they
well,
couldn't kill a black person.
yeah, but keep in mind that is Captain Marvel. The Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel. She wasn't Captain Marvel until they had
Yeah,
Captain
I
America
get
say,
it.
"You should take the
I
title."
get it. I
Yeah.
get it.
Anyway, it just pisses me off because it's so insipid. Anyway, yeah, there is a tiny demographic, but it is a tiny. That's the thing. I mean, if they did this switch, here's the thing: if they did this switch the years back where they did, and they started making crazy money, man, we just have to shut up and deal with it, right? If they were making
Sure.
money hand over fist because it was the right move, well, we're just shit out of luck,
If it,
right?
if it was selling,
If it
then
was
it would
selling,
make
yeah,
sense. But it's not selling. And
yeah,
no matter how much they did this movie and they say, oh, it's $1 billion movie, Miss Captain Marvel, nobody remembers and nobody cares except
yeah.
for very few.
Yeah. It's just this one bugs me the most. Adrian says, I've met very few females that read comics and superhero comics, especially. Yeah, of course, there are some more, and a small amount. And they've been pushing this for years and years and years and years, and it still hasn't really increased the number much. So, maybe, just maybe, it's a medium that women aren't so interested in. However, if we did have comic books like we've been talking about here the past couple of weeks that told other stories, maybe you would. Because here's the interesting thing: in Japan, they have a manga that talks about whatever you name it, there's a manga about it. And the boys tend to like the more action oriented stuff, and the girls like the more slice of life stuff. And they both buy them. Manga is bought by men and women quite equally here. And it's because the women will go read the little romance things, and the guys will read the, Wanpaman and My Hero Academia and stuff like that. So, they're selling to their market correctly. So, you could sell the women. You just have to do it right. Like Archie. Archie was probably the most popular female comic book we've ever had in America. A lot of women back in the 50s read Archie. A lot. So, there you go. Anyway,
Yeah.
Eric, you want to add anything to that?
Captain Marvel, no, not at all.
Yeah, it just makes me sad, dude.
Even that picture you're showing right there, that picture you're it's basically in a nutshell what's wrong. I mean, that does not, I mean, unless you're an angry lesbian, do you really want to see that? I mean, they managed her up. She's obviously female, but I mean, I look at that and I don't think, yeah, I want to read that. I look at that and I see just a mean,
Angry.
vicious,
Yeah.
stare you down, angry person. And that's not the kind of hero I want.
And
I
she
mean,
was. Go ahead.
unless you want to make her into the Punisher. But right now, what she is she's a totalitarian. She's an authoritarian.
Yeah.
Um, do what I tell you to do, and if you don't, then there's going to be, these kind of terrible consequences.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem to really give a shit what
No,
happens. She's not a hero, and
she's an authoritarian, and that's the point that the article's making, by the way. Yeah.
I personally think that she is a villain. She's not an anti-hero. She's a villain. And they want to prop her up as the face of the comics. The hell are you thinking?
Yeah, and Adrian makes a good point I didn't even think about because there is a surge of manga in America. Over here, female comic book readers are reading the Japanese slice of life books as well. Yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Manga's kicking the shit out of Western comics. They
they
just
are.
are.
They are. I really wish that the European books were having a bigger impact in America than they are, but they're unfortunately they're not. Anyway,
They're
let me.
doing very well over there, but they're not doing very well over
Yeah,
here.
unfortunately, but manga caught on for some reason. But anyway, let's take a look at this. I really wanted to look at that, but I'm going to look at this because I have to pick. This is going to be our last story for today. But it's an interesting conversation. Go ahead, Thundera.
Superman versus Marvel's Hyperion. Who wins in a fight? Superman,
Okay,
because he's
Eric.
Superman.
Superman.
Why aren't they picking the Sentinel?
Slick.
It's probably Superman.
Hmm. Now, as soon as I saw that title, that headline, and I read the whole article as well, and I came to this immediately the same conclusion that Edward Gondino did as well. I think Hyperion wins that fight, actually. And the reason why is because Hyperion is a copy of Superman, as the comic book companies are always copying their characters. They're always doing it. Hyperion, of course, now is a good guy, I guess, but he was a bad guy for a long time. But he is a carbon copy of Superman. The only difference is he has none of Superman's weaknesses. Doesn't have the sun issue, doesn't have the kryptonite issue. He has none of them. And he's way more vicious than Superman. He will kill, and Superman will not. With all those things taken into account, and the fact that Marvel just basically copy and pasted Superman's powers onto him, I'd say he wins. Oddly enough. What do you guys think about that argument? That's what this article says as well. What do you
Well,
guys think?
which Superman are we talking about?
Yeah, the witch Superman.
Well, whatever
Are
Superman
we
you
talking
have,
about
Hyperion
modern
mirrors it.
Superman versus modern Hyperion? Because Silver Age Superman would destroy him. It wouldn't even be close.
Well, I don't know that that's true because he's
Yeah,
an
it is.
exact mirror of Superman.
Silver Age Superman was quite literally One Punch Man. He always won because the writers just wrote that he wins. They
Yeah,
found a way every
I get
time.
that. I get that. But
He
we're
had
talking
every power
logistics
he ever
here.
needed, and he wins. Has Hyperion ever pulled 25 planets with a big chain around the universe?
All right, fine. So not Silver Age Superman then.
Thank you.
Modern one.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. Like we're taking like Superman's power set in history, and their multiverse. It's Superman. It's just
Yeah,
Superman. all day
no
long.
one beats Silver Age Superman. It's just he always wins. That's kind of his gimmick. And now modern Superman, I think it'd be a good fight, but I'd still pick Superman just because I always bet on Superman. That's
Well,
that's the point of him. He's Superman.
You guys know I love Superman. Superman's my thing. I'm just looking at it logistically. On paper, Hyperion should win.
Yes, but Superman wins those fights often. On paper, he should
That's
lose, and he
true.
still finds a way to
That
win.
is true, even with his weaknesses. Eric, any
Yes.
any ideas on this?
I gotta say, I really don't know much about Hyperion,
I do.
so I gotta go with Superman. I mean, yeah, he will find a way to win. But, yeah, always. Well, except against Doomsday, but always.
Yeah. No,
Now, he beat Doomsday.
he did.
Okay,
just-
you're right. He beat
Died in the
Doomsday
process.
and died in
Yeah,
the
he did.
process.
Now, my heart, of course, is with Superman, but it was an interesting article that I knew would create controversy, of course. But it is very interesting if you look at it logistically. I know Hyperion well simply because I bought my daughter the Miss Marvel book and some of the other books she was in, and she was knocking around with Hyperion for quite a while. Right? So
Mhm.
Hyperion is in all those books with her. They didn't have her by herself. She was with him, and they dated and stuff, I guess. Yeah. So I actually know Hyperion more than I would normally have, simply because of that. And he's just a cut and paste Superman is what he is.
Well, here's the problem, though. Even today, we still don't have an actual canon power level for Superman.
No.
Because it's always all over the place. Every time they do a new generation, or whatever they want to call it, new era, his powers are now at a different level, and sometimes he even has new powers. And that's a serious problem that they can't decide how powerful he is. But I think the other thing, as Adrian pointed out, Superman always holds back. So
That's
if he was
true.
fighting Hyperion, he wouldn't do that. And we might get to see him punching him hard enough to rip holes in reality. Because we know he can do that if he actually goes all out.
I think these two would break the planet.
Yeah, it'd be cataclysmic if they actually fought. Unless it was Silver Age Superman, because then he would just magically have the ability to just defeat him. So
fair enough. Fair enough.
Now, if we're talking like original Superman, yeah, Hyperion would kick his ass.
Yeah, that wouldn't be close. Yeah.
I really wanted to take some time today and go through these 16 books that are coming out here. We don't have the time, unfortunately. I do need to get to work. But let's look at the list, though. Thunder, do me a favor and read them out.
Amazing Spider-Man 53, Avengers, Marvel's Snapshots 1, Cable number 6, Captain America number 25, Fantastic Four number 26, Hellions number 6, Immortal Hulk number 40, Juggernaut number 3, Marvel's Voices, Indigenous Voices, okay. Number 1, Spider-Woman, that's just a really bad title. Yeah. Spider-Woman number 6, Star Wars Bounty Hunters number 7, Swordmaster number 12, Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black number 1, Venom number 30, Widowmakers, Red Guardian, and Yelena Belova number 1, X-Force 14.
Now, there's a lot of number ones in there.
There is.
Interesting. But Eric, choose one.
Choose one. Immortal Hulk 40
All right. Let's go
or
to
200, Alex.
For 200, Alex. All right, let's come over here. Look. Now, this is a story by Al Ewing. Okay. Art by Joe Bennett. Cover by Alex Ross. You sold me already. Scotty Young. Why are there so many people involved with the cover? I don't know.
Variant covers. Scotty Young does the cartoony
Oh,
variant
I
covers.
see. But I love Alex Ross, of course. But now the Immortal Hulk, as far as I understand, is the Hulk. And there are many other hulky things going on that aren't Hulk, but this is actual Hulk, right?
Mm.
I think
As
so.
far as I know, I've heard a lot of people rave about the series, so that's why I
Yeah,
picked that.
it is doing well. And it says, so here's the skinny. Hulk's lower than he ever was. He's stuck in an iron hotel built just for him, and there's a new Sasquatch guarding the door. If he gets through him and the rest of Gamma Flight, all he wins is an airlock to open space. It's a rigged game with no way to win. Only Joe Fixit never learned how to lose. So is this Banner or is it someone else? Because I haven't been reading. Because who's Joe Fixit?
Well, Joe
Joe
Fixit
Fixit was
is
the
the
Gray
guy.
Hulk.
He's
Yeah,
the Gray Hulk.
in
Oh,
the
I
suit
see.
from Vegas.
So it's got to be Banner. It has to be Banner when he's shrunk down, unless he's faster. I don't know.
Well, I understood that this was the Hulk. And they've gone back to the old face. Have you guys noticed that?
Mm. Monstrous.
Yeah, the original Hulk face, the Kirby face. Huh. Interesting. So this is this Bruce Banner is what he looks like now. What happened?
I don't know why he looks like an Asian man, but okay. At least in that one panel, he looks very
man with a
Asian.
mullet.
In that
Yeah.
one panel, he looks very Asian. I don't know what they're doing there, but I actually like the idea of going back to Hulk the Monster.
Yeah.
I think that's needs to happen. I think there's a reason Stan Lee said Hulk was his favorite creation, or his favorite superhero. And I like the idea of going back to the Monster Hulk for a while. Let him be a force of nature that
Yeah.
Bruce is trying desperately to control.
So, Thundero, with this shirt that Banner is wearing, is he a Boogaloo guy?
Apparently,
Sweet.
that's the real reason the government arrested him right there. They're not afraid of the Hulk so much.
Or
Yeah,
Hunter
no,
S.
yeah. No,
or
I
Hunter
wouldn't
S.
mind
Thompson.
Hulk being on the Boogaloo though. That'd be good.
So
We
this
use
is
him,
in
Hunter
Banner's
S. Thompson
mind,
for
and
some
he
reason.
thinks he's Tom Selleck in his mind.
It seems so. Yeah, we got some of that going on. All right. Well, let's pick another one here. Slick, you pick one.
Let me see, what are we looking at here? Let's go with Cable 6.
Cable. Now, Cable came in a time where it was kind of in between for me. I had stopped reading comics. I was traveling around doing my music, and I didn't start reading comics again until I was a father. So I kind of missed the whole introduction of Cable stuff, and I never really been into him. It's kind of a weird idea, but he's very popular though. Oh, the art looks good. Who we got? We got Gary.
Oh, he's
Duggan.
young Cable. Crap.
It's the young
Okay.
Cable that came back and killed the old Cable for some
Yeah.
reason.
Okay. I don't know Gary Duggan offhand. You guys know him?
Yeah.
Mhm.
No. Phil Noto.
You mean Jerry Dugan? I believe he's
I don't
the
know
guy
him
that came up with Punisher, wasn't it?
Oh, I have no clue. I don't know who it is. His name isn't clicking with me. But this is the young Cable, which I remember that's people talking about that storyline. The art, it's this kind of art. I don't know. What do you guys think about this style of comic book art? This kind of like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not
It's
a fan
bland.
of it.
Jerry Conway created the Punisher.
Oh, sorry,
That's
Jared Conway. It's not. I got
Yeah,
it
yeah.
mixed up. Yep, you're right. I don't know, Jerry Duggan, but I don't know, some guy.
Yeah, see, it just feels low effort. That art.
Yeah, the art's not great.
I mean, look at there's no backgrounds. It's very low
Yep.
energy.
Yeah, and once again, what we see here that's been going on for quite a while in comics is you always have to have some other character, particularly maybe your main character, that is going to justify the ability of a female. They always have to be justified. They always have to be spoken about how great they are, how strong they are, how smart they are. They can't let them live on their own merit. And here we have it again. She's fast. She's strong. She's good.
Yeah.
She's not as good as me. But this justification, this verification from
I'm sure
male.
that she's stunning and brave too.
Yeah,
Well,
you know what
it's
I mean.
always has to be a vocalized, or
Yeah.
I guess in this it'd be internalized mostly, but to the reader it's being vocalized instead of just letting it happen. Right? If you take those words out of here and just show him struggling, far better at what they're trying to do to show that she's actually capable. But they don't do that because they have to have the validation. Has to be there.
Yeah, it's not really what you want to do. It's not how you sell it. Once
Yeah.
again, age-old reality. Show, don't tell.
Correct.
Unbelievable. Let's see. So Eric picked one, Slick picked one. Now it's Thunder's turn.
I mean, I have to pick Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black. Have to.
All right.
Must be done.
Let's take a look here. Story by Peter David. Now I know that name.
Oh, Greg Land, Jesus.
Art by Greg Land. All right.
Tracer.
Cover's okay.
That
Traced
cover
it from
looks fun.
something, I'm sure.
Hey,
Symbiote
well, whoever he
Spider-Man.
traced it from did a good job.
Yes, they did.
So they basically brought back Symbiote Spider-Man #1. Is this a new one or just is some kind of flashback noir type of thing? I don't know.
Well,
You got some old characters
don't
in
know.
there, though.
I'm going to tell you this, though. I like the title. I don't like it for Spider-Man, but I like the title King in Black. That
Yeah, that would have
They
been
kinda
much better
wasted
just
that
title,
on-
but
yeah.
by itself would have
just
been
King in
great
Black.
title.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, that would have
King
been a
in
hell of a
Yellow,
title.
right? Anyway, Null, the King in Black, has set his sights on Earth, but as avid Marvelites already know, his hand has been at work at the edge of the Marvel Universe for years. In this series, witness one of Null's earliest attempts to birthing life from the darkness of non-creation. From superstar creators Peter David and Greg Land comes a titanic tie-in tale to this year's winter epic King in Black. All right, so it's one of those crossover events.
That is
No.
a mouthful.
It is. Yeah, it is. So this
No,
is
that is a good question.
this is Kang.
That's what. Do
Yeah,
they
that's
mean
Kang.
Kang? Is that what they meant to say out there?
They might just be idiots. It's possible.
No, apparently Null is a malevolent deity that predates the universe itself.
Oh, good.
Oh,
I have never heard of Null in my life.
Someone feed that cat.
Yeah, he must.
That would be my cat. She wants out of the room. Hang on.
Sexy boots.
They are sexy boots. Those are nice boots. And this is like classic.
King has
Kang.
always loved his King have always loved his hooker boots. He just
Yeah.
likes them.
Yeah, he does. It's interesting. Seems to be a bit of a throwback comic. The art looks like it's
Traced. That's what it looks
copied
like.
or
It's
something.
traced.
Yeah.
It's Greg
Yeah, no.
Land. That's what he does.
You just
really?
you just don't like Greg Land. He loves to trace though. That's true. He picks.
Well, it does look
Yeah.
as if it's photoshopped or something. It doesn't look like art. It's like
Okay, look at that face and look at that hand. That doesn't match.
No, it
Art
looks
style
like
and
you
that
took a
face and
photo.
that hand
and
aren't
you-
even close. Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, I see what you're saying now. All right. I don't know. It looks interesting. It's proper comic book presentation anyway. I don't know. Don't know this Null character, but
He can definitely do storytelling. And until I found out that he did praise quite and swipe other people's art and pictures, I really liked the art until I found out he did that with a lot of stuff. I was like, oh, that's why it looks so good sometimes.
I'll have to go check. I'll have
He
to go
does.
check
He
that
does
Chiron.
swipe a lot. That's true. He does swipe a lot.
Huh. Well, I don't know anything about what's going on with that. Although poor Galactus keeps getting kicked to the curb, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, didn't Galactus, exist before the universe began, or they retconned that shit?
Yeah, he's
Do
from
you look at
before,
Swordmaster? I'm not to. I mean, I know you should get a pick, but Swordmaster. I don't
As
know what.
far as I
Swordmaster is.
know, that's still his canon origin for Galactus. But who knows anymore?
Oh, Null is
Yeah,
the
who
god of the
knows?
symbiotes. Oh, I see. Well, here's your Swordmaster.
Null is
Yeah.
apparently. I'm looking him up right
That
now.
doesn't look- that looks boring. That
It's
looks very.
anime.
That's
It's
anime.
Japanese anime.
He was
Anime.
basically
Mm.
Null was basically the god of the universe before the Celestials created the universe. That's the idea.
Okay.
Okay.
I get it. But it's my pick. And how could I do anything other than picking Marvel's voices, indigenous voices? How could I? How could I not?
That
I'll
sounds
give
like
it.
voices in somebody's head.
All right. So the cover is by David Mack, Jeffrey Verege,
what
Afu
the-
Richardson, and Jim
Very,
Terry.
very gay. Did you say that?
Maybe.
It's terrible.
How many
Very
people
good.
wrote this thing? Are there multiple stories? Is that what's happening here?
It's
Because
probably
yeah,
little shorts.
maybe
It's
committee
probably,
story by
probably like
committee.
those page things. You know,
They're
they
all
had
indigenous
that one
people. Look
page
at
where.
that.
Yeah.
Stone
Remember
horse,
that page
stone
where?
badger.
Do you guys remember that page where like She-Hulk basically assaults the police and and gets back at somebody? I can't remember what it was, but it was just like a page.
Mhm.
That's probably what it is. Just having like these little short things. Yeah, that's probably
Maybe.
what we're looking at.
Vignettes, yeah. Well, the first thing I could say about voices, indigenous voices, which is the best title ever. I mean, geez, come on, guys, just call it indigenous voices. What are you doing? But that's what you want. But this cover is not good. It's not good at all. It's really not. I would say that
Yeah,
every
well,
piece of art we looked at the horror panels earlier are better than this. It is ridiculous. Let's see what the interior looks like. Well, look at the idea here first. Okay. Marvel celebrates Indigenous History with a star-studded special. Is it Indigenous History Month now? I didn't know we had one of those. Sweet.
probably.
So let's take a look. Today's hottest
It
Native
would have
American.
to be. It would have to be November, Indigenous History Month.
Perfect.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. Yeah, that's where Columbus Day is the month before. So today's hottest Native American indigenous talent make their Marvel comic debut. Okay, so these aren't indigenous voices in the book; they're indigenous voices as far as people you have hired. I get it. That's why the art sucks balls. All right, cool. Not saying that indigenous can't be good at art, though. I didn't say that, Thundero. That wasn't what I said.
No.
No, wasn't what I said. And Marvel celebrates National Native American Heritage Month. So we do have a month. Eric, look that up. When is that? Is that November? Of
I would
course
have
it
thought
is.
that would have been last month, but it might be because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well,
Because,
Slick made
the
a joke,
hands
and I
feeding
think
us.
his joke is reality. Good job, Slick.
Right.
I'm just thinking logically.
Yeah, no.
Gotta shove down the colonialists.
Celebrated writer. Hold on a second. Celebrated writer and artist Jeffrey Verige explores the legacy of Marvel's incredible cast of indigenous characters. Okay, Hugo, Nebula, and Locust award-winning Black OK Owinighe writer Rebecca Ronenhorst. Okay, and Tongva. Oh, that's a good name. Artist Weishoyot Elvitre. That was a good one too. Tell an echo tale like none you've ever heard before. Oh, really? Geoscientist and Lipan Apache writer Darius. He's a geoscientist as well. Writer Darius Little Badger joins acclaimed Whitefish Lake First Nation artist Cultures from a Danny Moonstar story. You fucker! I said it.
Isn't a geoscientist very much like an earth scientist, or have they just decided to change the definition?
Whatever, dude. And Bram Stoker winning horror writer Stephen Graham Jones. Well, I do believe
That guy is
Bram
not Native
Stoker
American.
Award winning was written by Bram Stoker. You tit.
I guess Stephen Graham Jones is the black of the. That's a very not.
I'm trying to get through this with all these foreign names, Slick. Okay, Stephen Graham Jones of the Blackfeet Nation teams up of Kalupu Mikak First Nation and David Coulter. Oh, thank God! To revisit one of the darkest spots of X-Men history. Damn! Did you see that? I got through that. I was badass, Eric. Do you see that?
We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
And by the way, George Bush made 1990. He made November National American Indian Heritage Month. They've kind of changed the name since then.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh,
I agree, Chiron. You can't make this shit up. Did I say a bad word? I might have. Oh, that's just wonderful.
Oh,
Uatu is never looked so cool. He's got kind of an Indian name, doesn't he? Yeah. Oh, he's staying on the planet. That's perfect. Oh, it's one of these heavy line weight ones there, Eric. What do you think?
I'm not a big fan of those. They remind me of cartoons.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people like them though. It's not
I mean,
horrible.
the art isn't bad. I just don't like the thick lines outlining every character. Oh God.
My
Oh my God.
God.
It's a tranny.
Wow.
What the hell is that?
Oh.
Did she get punched in the nose and it swole up?
I think she's a bleached black woman now. That's perfect.
Oh, just like oh gosh, what was it the other day? Yesterday you showed it. Marlon Wayans and White Girls.
Yeah, no, it's worse than that even. It's really bad art, dude. Oh, you're disrespecting the natives. The Indians aren't gonna be happy. It's a little bit better, but it's a little bit better.
I think that's a different artist there.
It is. It's
a different artist.
Different story, I think. And of course, we have had indigenous people in comics for a long time. It's nothing new. This is better. All right, this is better. It's kind of Disney-esque, but I'm not hating it. This is not a treaty negotiation. No, you're about to get eaten by wolves, and why are you sneaking in there? I don't think you're negotiating anything. Okay. They're stealing flour, and she gets hit by some premonition. All right. Well, it's not all bad. There is some good art in here. There's some so-so art, and then there's some very bad art.
Oh God.
It's really bad. But the funny thing for me is just this whole paragraph. I mean, could you possibly take your head out of your ass for 5 seconds, please? Right? I mean, what the hell is this? Whitefish-like First Nation artist Kyle Charles? What a sentence, dude. I mean, holy crap. How long is that sentence? Give me a second. I'm getting into teacher mode here. Those are long-ass run-on sentences, dude. But, yeah, of course. Anyway, whatever. Anybody have an opinion on that? Anybody?
Well, I don't think I'll be buying it, but
Okay.
I hope somebody does for the sake of the Native Americans. I hope that they buy it. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I think it is based on those Captain America action figures, Joshua. I do. But yeah. Now, thank you, George Bush, for giving us a National Indigenous Month. They're gonna run out of months there, Thundero.
Yeah, and as a
let's start using the one from next year.
As an indigenous peoples, I find it utterly moronic that these people do this stuff.
Yeah, I'm
the vast majority of Indians, American Indians, don't care, have no interest in any of it. Not even passing. They also don't. Many of them don't like to be called natives. They like to be called by their tribal name or just American Indian.
Yep.
If you talk to them, they'll tell you that. That's what they call themselves.
Yeah. Well,
it's only woke white liberals that for some reason insist on having control of the narrative of all namings and all naming conventions for these groups of people that call them things like this, like Latinos, right? Latin people of Latin descent. They call themselves Latina or Latino, but woke liberals have decided Latinx is a thing, and it's not a thing, and they hate it.
I thought Latinx was simply talking about the trannies.
No. They have literally tried to redefine Latino culture into Latinx and degenderify it.
Why?
Well, it's because the language is gendered. They want to degender it. So.
You mean like all the other Romance languages that are gendered? You mean those?
Yeah.
Wow, you got a lot of languages you're going to have to tear down. That's a lot.
There are a lot of these people who don't want Americans to use American because a lot of other people live in America, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck them.
Yeah. They also, for some reason, believe English isn't a gendered language, even though it very much is. In fact, it's just as gendered as any of the other ones.
That's yes and no. To be fair, English is gendered in the feminine only.
Yes,
right?
Correct.
The other languages are gendered, literally gendered. But English, only women get special words. There's very few words in English that are male specific. Males get the generic word, women get a specialized word. So yeah, it's an odd gendering. But you're right.
To them, That's horrifyingly sexist, and
whatever.
it should all actors should be called actors only. Not allowed to say actress anymore. That's sexist. All pick something that has a
No stewardess. It has to be flight attendant.
yeah. They must be neutral.
I
No
thought they
gendering
were-
at all.
I thought they were all about the woman, though. Why would you take away women's words? That's a weird thing to do.
Because it's bad.
Because
bad is
everything
that? I
they
thought
say
you
they're
liked
about,
women.
they're about the
It's just
opposite.
bad. Man, there's no real reason. It's just bad.
Well, here's the thing, though, because what you were talking about with indigenous, I believe everyone I'm talking to right now is indigenous. I'm
Yes.
indigenous.
Mhm.
Did your mom and dad move to America, Eric, and then you were born there?
No.
No, then you're indigenous. How about you, Slake? Did your parents just come over and then just dropped you on the land?
I'm not an immigrant.
No. So, I mean, because, if your parents were born in the country, you're indigenous. The only way you're
Yes.
not indigenous is even if you were born there, if you were brought over, if you're a child of immigrants, you're not indigenous. But I'm pretty much sure everybody here has generations in country. Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have 8 generations on my one side. I have 3 on the others. I have
There you go.
5 on another, and I have 7 on the other.
Because I know
Yeah.
my mom's family were like on the frickin' first boat, and my dad's family came over in the 1650s. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm indigenous. I've been there a long time.
That's why the whole argument that they try to make about this is stolen land is so utterly moronic.
Oh no, it's
Because
conquered.
99.9% of the people who fought in
It's
all
not
of the wars,
stolen land.
Oh, it's conquered.
It's
who
conquered.
fought in these wars for this land, were born here. It's just as much their
And-
land as anybody else's.
And it's conquered. It was conquered, and that's happened throughout history. And here's the thing: these tribes are in some ways lucky compared to other parts of history where they just wiped everybody out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially them. They were real good at genocide. Many of them.
Oh, they were.
Oh yeah,
It's
and people they never talk about that, where the different tribes were constantly warring with each other and torturing each other and raping each other. It wasn't like this kumbaya thing over the Americas. They were killing each other and fighting and being the most horrific shit. There's a reason why somebody being laid out on an anthill is kind of symbolic of Native American torture, at least here in the United States.
Oh,
It's
sure.
because they were doing that stuff. They
were
had their ways of doing
Pretty
things.
horrible.
and-
All people.
And we
were
don't get into
horrible.
Mesoamerica or South America. Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, it's really bad. Lorenzo says, "Is Chester indigenous to Japan?" No, I'm not. No, I am a migrant, sir.
Yes.
Yep.
Would be my
He-
title. But
He's an expat.
oh, you fucking son of a. All right, let me ask you a question. Who are the most genocidally maniac, crazy bastards that are most protected? What racial group? What group? Named group that are just their history is just bloody as shit, but they are so protected. Who do you think they are?
Mm,
And this is from
That's-
an anthropologist, by the way.
We could just lay it on me. I can think of a lot of really
Right,
bloody
right.
people.
Well, I could be funny and just say the Jews, but I wouldn't do that.
That's what I was like. Is he gonna get us nuked?
No, it's what most people would call the Zulu.
Yeah,
You got to
Yeah,
keep in
Zulu.
mind those guys started
Kinda
up and around the
crazy.
Sudan area, and they got kicked out because they were so violent, and they just their reign of terror coming down the east coast of Africa, killing everything in their path, eventually coming into South Africa, nearly wiping out the tribes that were actually getting along quite well with the Dutch and British, and then kicked off all those wars. They are absolutely filthy in their murderous ways. Filthy.
Are they the Bantu, or are they just you talking about the Zulu
I'm
proper?
talking about the Bantu, yeah. Most people
Okay.
call them Zulus, right? But whatever. I'm just saying that there's a lot of really nasty people in history that no one talks about because somehow they're protected, as if black people or yellow people or white people or any kind of people haven't torn the hell out of their neighbors constantly throughout history. It is outrageous. But good on you, Whitefish Lake Nation persons. Rock on. That's all I got to say.
And
I'm done for the day. I'm
Stick
30
a
minutes
fork
late,
in
too.
Chester.
Huh?
I said, stick a fork in Chester.
Stick a fork in me. I mean, it's the dumbest thing ever. I mean, how many months do you have in a year? Everyone gets a month. I mean, why do you have a month?
Well,
Why is a single month dedicated to your culture? Why shouldn't you not celebrate your culture all year long if that's what
I'm
you're
just waiting
into?
for him to. We're waiting for him to take away, December from the Christians. So
Oh, they will. They will. Of course, they want
Well,
to.
in fairness, the Christians stole it first, so
They
yeah,
did. That is fair. That is fair. That
in
is fair.
fairness,
That is fair.
totally fair.
But the Mongols pretty bad. Adrian says they were. They were pretty bad.
yeah,
But the
yeah.
Mongols were extremely organized, though.
For a
That
little while.
they were. You got to understand when
That makes it okay.
well, no, I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying they were extremely organized. Whereas the Bantu or the Zulu, when they came down, the reason they had so much success is because they had added some pretty impressive advancements for the other compared to other Africans. You see, they had sandals and they shortened their spears. They were just a wrecking crew.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow. Did
yeah.
they have the
Technological
wheel?
advancement. Yeah. And keep in mind, this is at the time when the British were walking around the world with freaking guns, rifles, right?
Yeah.
But their big old advancement was sandals. Aw,
Well,
aw. Is that racist, Thundero? Am
I
I
don't
being
know.
racist?
Can I ask you, as a historian,
Yeah.
was there one like sub-Saharan African tribe that figured out boats, like ships, like navigation?
Oddly enough, no. They don't like the water for some reason. I don't know what that is.
I knew you were going to say that.
They
Well, I'm just
don't
wondering
though.
because, like, every other major civilization figured that out.
Yeah, no, they don't even
figured
have
out how
like
to
a
move around.
canoe history. Not even. I mean, there's a few tribes that interacted with other more advanced people that used it a little bit, but they don't even have a canoe history, let alone that. Most of the rich kings. There are a couple examples of rich African kings coming up and literally throwing gold around, trying to show off how good they were. They trekked across the continent by foot. They didn't do what everyone else was doing, where they jump around the continent, because it's a dangerous thing to trek across Africa. So most of the ancient peoples would simply take their boats and hop around where they needed to get, right? But no, the Africans don't. I mean, to be completely honest, the Africans have never built anything of lasting value, and that's not my opinion. And
Yeah,
Adrian says,
it's
"Liar!" He's screaming at me. No, am I?
unfortunately.
I'm just, I do.
He's got proof.
I mean, I'm pretty impressed with what, like, say, the Polynesians did with their navigation skills.
Yeah,
You know,
they
you
were
know what I
impressive.
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they probably are the greatest natural navigators that have ever been.
Well, the
Um,
interesting thing about Polynesians now, of course, they got soft because they went to these tropical
they,
places. But the original ones,
yeah.
they're very interesting how they came out. They came out of South America, right? And they are a mix of because we had Egyptians come over a long time ago into South America. We don't know exactly when, but they did come over, and they brought with them their, of course, they have military people there with them. And in Egypt, their military was the Nubians. The Nubians are great warriors, right? And so they brought a bunch of them over, and it seems that the traders or whatever they were doing, they left, but a lot of the Nubians stayed, and they built their own little nation, and they started interacting with and breeding, of course, with the natives, and that's where the Polynesians came out of. They're a mix of the South American native and the African, and then they took their quite impressive skills and just went all the way back over to frickin' New Zealand. So it's pretty interesting. A lot of people have this misconception that the Polynesians came from Asia into the Americas. It's the opposite. But they're still
Well, I
going
always
on
say the
about the canoe.
Olmecs. Everybody talks about the Olmec heads. They
Yeah,
always say they look like Africans.
they are.
Personally, to me, they look like Polynesians.
Well, I mean, they were mixing, right? But there was that we don't know exactly why the Egyptians were there. The general idea is that they were probably just collecting resources or had like a trade camp, or we don't know why. But they were
They came
there.
from space.
Oh well, that's a whole nother conversation, Eric. But I'm just saying that's where the Polynesians come from, and their history is pretty cool. It's too bad that once they got on those islands, they just kind of gave up and just became fruit eaters. It just became so soft. It's unfortunate because I think it would be really cool to have met the original Polynesians. I mean, they probably kill you, but beyond that, they were probably badass, dude. Really badass people. But no, that's long ago. Anyway, I gotta go. What are you guys doing?
So we're trying to get you
Oh.
fired from your own job. That you made for
Yeah, okay,
yourself.
I'll fire myself. All right, guys. Let me go ahead and work on getting out of here. So, Eric, go ahead and give your closing comments, sir.
Oh, hey, even though the comic industry looks like a disaster, keep buying stuff. It might get better. That's what I got to say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Slick.
I'm almost like I keep saying this, but it's eking towards it. I am very close to pulling the trigger right now. I'm just trying to figure out things in my in making the print file. It's a little meticulous stuff, trying to get it right so all the pages match and everything.
Oh, geez, I thought you were talking about ending it. I'm like, dude, not on the show, please.
No, not ending it right now. I'm not talking about ending the campaign and all of that other stuff. And then I will be opening up on Black Friday. No, yeah, Black Friday. I'll be opening up a lostpeaks.com, which is where you can get all my swag and merch that you will have.
Oh, that's cool. There you
Cool.
go. And Bullet says that I don't know if you saw this, Eric, but Bullet said that I'm actually pretty cool. Actually.
Actually.
The real
Thanks,
question
Bullet.
now is what's Bullet after?
No, he just wants to pick on me.
He wants a
they
little
like picking
loving.
on me, Thundera. That's all right.
Little Chester loving. That's what
In
he
fairness, you deserve it.
I do. All right, fine. All right, fine. I'll take it. All right. Go ahead, Thundera.
I will see everybody on. Well, I won't see you unless you decide to somehow all come on camera. I will see you in the proverbial sense on Saturday. Saturday? No, Sunday.
Sunday.
Sunday is when it will happen. Other than that, I think we're in for a very crazy rest of this month when it comes to like just politically and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So it's gonna be fun.
Keep your head down and your powder dry.
Gonna be fun.
It will be fun. All right. Well, namaste to political chaos. Later,
Yes.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.